Jacksonville, the community, Duval. Welcome everybody. It is week 2 of the NFL season. We are so back, and the Jaguars are 1-0 going up into a big road game this week. Today we're going to recap a little bit of week 1. We have a big trade to cover, and we're going to go into a little bit of in-depth analysis of this week's Jaguars game versus the Bengals and my predictions on what's going to happen here. And then we'll run through a little bit of this week's matchup. But first of all, let's start off with that win over the Panthers. Let's get started. So the Jaguars dominated the Carolina Panthers 26-10 at home in week 1. Can I say that was expected? From my view, no, it wasn't. In my preview, I kind of had this as a coin flip game. I thought the Jaguars would win just because it's at home, week 1. But I think what happened was I think I just underestimated kind of the Jags' talent under good coaching. Last year, I feel like everything went wrong for the Jaguars. We just had bad coaching, no motivation, really terrible turnover luck, and some bad injury luck as well. No reason that team should have went 4-13. I think that much is clear, and I think I overestimated the Panthers' talent and their team build. I think maybe I was buying into the, Bryce Young taking that next step, Dave Canales' second year in the system, them drafting McMillan, who was as pro-ready a receiver as you could get, and just thought that they would look better. I thought their defense would be better. Both teams looked like they were kind of in the same position coming out of last year. One was 4-13, Panthers were 5-12, but I think it's clear that the Panthers are just kind of a bad team with a bad QB, and we'll see about the coach. And the Jaguars were last year, I think, a talented team that just had bad scheme and bad coaching. And the Carolina, they got some problems. I don't know if Bryce Young is going to be that guy, and they just set their franchise back 5 to 10 years if he really isn't that guy with the amount that they gave up to go and get him. But bad for them. But the Jaguars did look pretty good. Let's go over some key highlights. I want to talk about Trevor Lawrence. I feel like the conversation this week about his performance is more about, he played okay, he ran the offense, but didn't do anything special. And I'd say I'd agree with that for the most part. I think he actually played really well, and I think a lot of that comes to do with how he commanded the offense. For a brand new system, week 1, I thought he looked really good, really comfortable, getting everyone in the right play, making checks at the line of scrimmage, setting the protection well, and then making the correct throw in the appropriate situation. He still had kind of those Trevor Lawrence miscues that he's kind of always had, where it's like he'll thread the needle on a third down on a nice throw to De'Ami Brown or to Brenton Strange over the middle. But then, on 1st and 10, he'll airmail Brian Thomas Jr. on an out route that he usually hits in his sleep. Or, on the interception, if he just maybe gets that ball out earlier, or maybe he holds GC Horn down in the zone a little longer instead of kind of locking onto Travis Hunter over the middle, gets more touch on that, a little bit out in front, then Travis Hunter might score a touchdown on that play alone, and then the whole conversation is Trevor Lawrence over 200 yards and 2 touchdowns, and Travis Hunter with a big breakout play. But overall, I thought he did really good, and we didn't need him to be amazing in this game because the run game was just so good and so dominant. Travis Etienne looked the best I've ever seen him. Do I expect him to be in Jacksonville next year? No, but I think that for us to get kind of like a one last year out of Etienne on a contract year, he's extra motivated. That kind of excites me to kind of see how this plays out down the line. And with the trade that we'll get into soon, I think it just exacerbates that even more. Offensive line, I think, is a very underrated story. I think they dominated the Panthers. I think, they got a lot of push up front. That was kind of my key to the game, is if they can, get push up the middle, if they can, block well, it opens so much up for the offense, and that's exactly what happened. They dominated the Panthers. Anytime you get 200 yards rushing in a game, that just shows that you were the more physical team, and that showed. More takeaways on this game, what clicked and what needs to be worked. I think Liam Cohen was great in his first game as head coach. One of the best debuts I think I've seen out of a coach on his first game. And what stood out to me the most was just the physicality that they've been preaching since the offseason. I feel like every regime always says, oh, we're going to be physical, we're going to be physical, we're going to be physical. But week one comes, then you can't get 3rd and 1, 4th and 1. But I just think that the physicality that they've been preached really did show up on the film. This team didn't look like the Jags of the past few years. It looks like they were just more comfortable, playing more free. So that was really great to see, and I think he just called a good game overall. Coach Campanile, our defensive coordinator, gives me a lot of hope. I loved the disguised blitzes, all the people at the line of scrimmage. You don't know who's coming, who's dropping out. That's something we just haven't seen a lot in Jacksonville. And one thing that stood out to me is just how free the linebackers and the safeties played in this game. There's a reason why we saw Foye Oluokun have probably one of his best games as a Jag. There's a reason why we saw Dewey and Eric Murray and Jordan Lewis fly around and make plays and just play free. I think it was a great game plan by Campanile. I think it showed up very well. Interior D-line is still a question mark for me. I know it's still week 1. Mason Smith was out, inactive. I'm curious to see how that goes moving forward. I don't know exactly why he was inactive. It was just holding out for precaution, or is it going to be like last year where there's some bigger reasons why they're not letting him suit up on Sunday? So that's still a question mark. We really need him to play well if we're going to be able to stop the run, because the Panthers did move the ball pretty well in between the 40s and between the 30s. They were moving the ball pretty well and getting into Jags territory almost every single drive, and then it came to Bryce Young having to make a play, and then he couldn't. And the Jags did step up, and the defense did really play well to get them off the field on those 3rd and 4th downs. So kudos to them, but I think Chuba Hubbard still had a pretty good day running between the tackles. So that's still a question mark. So we'll see about that. Got to bring up Travis Hunter here. It was a little underwhelming, I would say. I think he still looked good. I guess, they're trying to ease him back in, which I think is good. I think it's good for them not to just put everything on his plate right away. I would have liked to see a little more on defense. I think that would have just been cool, but it's cool that they didn't need him to do that this week. He had about 6 catches for 33 yards, but nothing really special. I think he looked good. He looked like he belongs out there, but we're still missing that splash play. We want to see that number 2 pick in the draft. This is the person you give up 2 first-round picks for. We want to see that eventually. So I hope, I know he's been out for a little bit. He didn't play the last 2 preseason games. Hope they just kind of implement him more. They were trying to feed him the ball and get him used to it, but I'd like to see just some more down the field stuff. And I'd like to see him more on defense. I really would. I think, can be a great corner, could be great in zone, great on 3rd down, get his eyes on the ball, get his eyes on the quarterback and make a play. Obviously, like I said, we didn't need him to do that this week because the Panthers were just really bad. It might take some more time to adjust and see how this experiment really pays off. Also, penalties, they really got to clean that up. The Jags may have won this game by 30 if they didn't have 6 or 7 holding calls that would put them back behind the chains so much. I think there was one point where they did 10 plays but only gained 8 yards or something like that. And then my biggest takeaway is that it's week 1 and the Panthers are a bad team. I think that's all you can really say. The Jags did what they were supposed to do. I said last week, if they can beat a below average or bad team at home week 1, I'll be more optimistic. And I am. But I'm not going to say we're going to the playoffs or we're winning the division because we beat the Panthers at home. This week is a much bigger test and it's going to be a tough one, but we'll see what happens. Really quick before I get to the trade, I do want to go around the AFC South. I'm not going to go through every game that happened week 1. That'll just take too long and I don't think everyone really cares that much. Unless you do, comment below if you want me to go through every game. I'd love to, but I just want to go around to AFC South because that's what matters most to us, right? The Texans lost to the Rams. Huge for the Jags. Texans losing, as always. The Texans O-line did look as bad as advertised. Not gonna lie. It was bad. I don't know exactly what they're thinking, if they just had no choice to run that offensive line out there this year, but we'll see. Also, their weapons outside of Nico Collins don't really scare me. They don't have Christian Kirk back in the lineup, and I think they need him because I don't know who is really taking that mantle as number 2 or number 3 wide receiver. I know they have those rookies from Iowa State, but I mean, they're rookies. Their offense really doesn't scare me that a whole lot, unless CJ Stroud kind of bounces back. However, their defense does look as good as advertised. I think their defense is just so good. It's going to be hard to move the ball on them. It's going to be a big test in week 3 for this offense. Unlike this week where Cincinnati's defense, obviously, you can do a lot on them. Titans lose to the Broncos. Cam Ward, besides some really bad sacks that he was taking to kind of like knock them out of field goal range and like a fumble at the end, I think he looked pretty good, honestly. I think he has a great arm and just like he just looks comfortable back there. He's big. You just see him rip it down the middle. If Ridley could catch the ball for them, then things might have been different for that game. And also, a lot of people forget that their defense was number 2 in the league last year, and it's still pretty good this year. They're not going to be no slouch. I don't think they're going to be very good, given their talent, given their coaching. I don't know if Callahan is the answer, but they still have a good defense, and I think Cam Ward will keep them in games. But I don't think they're going to be very good this year still. And then lastly, the Colts just whooped Miami. My gosh. I think it's funny how the Giants, all the players that leave the Giants end up looking way better. I mean, Saquon last year, Xavier McKinney, and then now Daniel Jones actually looks like pretty solid quarterback. We'll see about that though. I just can't tell if Miami is like just that bad or if the Colts are the real deal. I mean, we saw in preseason game 3 when our number 2 and 3 defense was shutting out and, really clamping down on Miami's offense. But it's a wait and see on the Colts. I'd like to see more, but a good win for them at home at least. All right, let's get into the Tank Bigsby trade. Really shocking Monday night, just out of nowhere. But was it really out of nowhere? I mean, we do know that there was a little bit of rumbling on the Jaguars making a trade of a running back. A lot of people thought it was going to be Travis Etienne. And there was some kind of cryptic tweets from Tank Bigsby. It looked like he may not have been as happy in the role that he might be getting. And then after week 1, after Etienne just showed out, I think it was kind of writing was on the wall that there's an odd man out on this running back room. So the Jacksonville Jaguars traded Tank Bigsby to the Eagles for 2026 5th and 6th round picks. Why did they do this? Well, I just pointed out Tank Bigsby had pretty limited snaps and impact in week 1. 12 yards on 5 touches. Etienne obviously led the usage, had a huge day, proved that he is still running back 1 on this roster and will continue to be throughout the season until Bashal Tutin may usurp him, just kind of like last year with Bucky Irving. But I think it was really good to get some value for a player that, I don't think is going to contribute a whole lot, considering Etienne's bounce back and just a really crowded running back room. The Jaguars suited up 4 running backs on Sunday, which is pretty rare. Usually you suit up 3. And I think it's hard to get all these running backs all these touches. We kind of saw that in week 1, especially if one has the hot hand. Travis Etienne has got the hot hand. We're going to let him go. And if that's the case, then sorry, Tank, sorry, Tutin. Like, you're going to get maybe a few, 3 to 4, 5, but we're going to roll with 1 until another one usurps the throne. But I like that we have kind of now a true role for each back. Etienne is our first and second down back. Bashal Tutin is going to spell Etienne at times, maybe have a few drives of his own. And then LaQuint Allen, I think LaQuint Allen is the biggest reason why they traded Tank Bigsby, because I think LaQuint Allen actually might have had more snaps than Tank Bigsby in the game. Just on 3rd down, making huge blocks. I know he was a key contributor to how he got 3 points at the end of the halftime last week. As it was 3rd down, he made a huge block on a blitzing corner on J.C. Horn, and then Trevor was able to rip it to De'Ami Brown across the middle, and we got 3 points off of that. I think that showed a lot that, hey, we need this guy out in the field. He can get some tough yardage on a 3rd down, on a 3rd and 3. We gave it to him. He got the 1st down. And he can catch the ball out of the backfield, which we know as Jags fans, that's not Tank Bigsby's role. So also not having to suit up 4 running backs means that we can have maybe an extra body on the offensive line or the defensive line. Maybe Mason Smith is active this week instead of being on the bench because we need all the running back help. And also this is just more draft ammunition to trade up in next year's draft. We don't have a 1st round pick next year. Having those extra 5th and 6th and 4ths, all that stuff, that matters to if they want to make a move to get back up, maybe in the top of the 2nd or the late in the 1st round. I think Gladstone made a great move here. I think he's just on a hot streak of just getting value out of these guys that we just, we don't need. Is it a little early maybe, because if one of these guys gets injured, then obviously a lot of questioning will be happening. But overall, it's a little sad to see Tank leave. I thought he would be maybe the best back this year, but I think it's clear where the direction is headed. ETN's the running back this year, and then they are slowly going to be grooming Bashal Tutin to take over next year and be the bell cow back for the next few years. I think that's kind of the writings on the wall. That's what's happening this year, and I think that's a great plan. Get the most out of your value, and also it's more of an indictment on the last regime. Trent Baalke, a former third-round pick just 3 years ago, is off the team. I think we don't have to say much about that. All right, let's get into the Jags versus Bengals, kind of what I'm sure everyone here has clicked on the video for. The Jaguars head to Cincinnati, 1 p.m. game. I originally had this game as a loss in my season preview. So is that going to change this Sunday? Well, let's see about that. Really quick, the Bengals beat the Cleveland Browns 17-16 in Week 1. Definitely, you could say a disappointing start for an offense that is as elite as them. 3 of some of the highest paid players at their position on that team, and they were lucky to win that game. It was 17-16, and Cleveland missed an extra point and a field goal. That's 4 points on the board. And they got the ball back with 2 minutes left to drive down the field to get another field goal to win the game. And the receiver drops the ball and it goes right into the Bengals' hands. So the Bengals got some really lucky breaks to get out here with a win. And is really just kind of keeping that narrative that the Bengals start out slow every year. I thought that was going to change this year, to be honest. I thought they were going to come out and just whoop Cleveland and kind of start some positive momentum. But Joe Burrow and the offense just looked okay. I mean, how many times do we see Joe Burrow with only 113 yards passing? That's insane, actually. So maybe this is just another year of them starting out slow. That's good for the Jags if that's the case, but we'll see about that. Cleveland is a really bad team, but they do have a really good defense. They still have a really good defense. I don't think it's that good to shut down this elite offense in the Bengals. But I'm sure they'll be ready and kind of waiting to kind of make a splash against the Jags in Week 2. I'm sure they're looking at the film going like, we can't start off slow again. And the Jags are a better team than the Browns, so I think they'll be kind of more ready. A few injury updates. The Bengals did put their starting right guard, Lucas Patrick, on IR. That's kind of good. The Jags are a little weak on the interior D-line, but if Mason Smith can get back in the lineup and Eric Armstead can get back to form, then that could be an advantage that they can go after. Anton Harrison, right tackle for the Jags, is questionable, but I believe he will still play. Nothing crazy on that with a little bit of a back injury. But let's kind of look at the outlook of this game. Jaguars offense versus Bengals defense, which is a huge key to this game. Can the run game continue? Nothing about the Bengals defense really scares me, besides obviously Trey Hendrickson. And I think their corners are, so-so. DJ Turner and Cam Taylor-Britt. Geno Stone is a decent safety as well, but I mean, this should be a defense. I think the Panthers defense is better than this defense. This should be a defense the Jaguars have no problem scoring on. They should have no problem running the ball. And I think that will be kind of a key to the game is, can Trevor kind of sustain more momentum with the offense and get the passing game going? Can we run the ball and kind of do some long drives, keep that offense on the bench, do some long sustained drives that end in touchdowns, not field goals, keep them off the field. And I think a key for this offense is get BTJ involved early and get him involved often. Just kind of make sure he isn't in his own head. I will say last week was a little concerning. I know we didn't need him to have a huge game, but it was clear that they were early on trying to get him in the ball game. First play of the game was a go route to BTJ, and he only had 1 catch for 11 yards. He did have that end around touchdown, so that's good. A little bit of confidence, a little bit of stats for his fantasy owners out there. I just think he needs to be a big part of this offense. I mean, he can be a superstar in this league, and it's just weird for him to have such a quiet day on the opener. And there's all these narratives around, oh, it's Trevor and BTJ. Maybe they just don't have a good connection. All of BTJ's good games came when Mac Jones was in last year. Maybe they don't have the best connection right now. I could see that. I mean, they've only played 8 or 9 games together in total. So maybe that is a thing. But I think this game they make a conscious effort to get him the ball early. Maybe they give him a few more kind of screens or a few more like easy completions to kind of get him some confidence, get Trevor and that connection going. and then feature him more throughout the game. On defense versus the Bengals offense, obviously this is kind of where some problems arise. I think the key for this defense is, can they just get home with 4? Last week we were able to blitz against Bryce Young because Bryce Young's not very good. He's still young. We don't need that much help on the back end, given I thought the receivers were going to be good, but not that good. This week with those receivers, I know Campanile loves to blitz, but we really need all the help we can get in the back end. And the thing is that they will move the ball. There's no doubt about it. They will move the ball. But can we just hold them to enough 3s instead of 7s? That'll be a key to this game. And just can Josh Allen, can Trayvon Walker just kind of get home? Hines Allen had a lot of had a lot of pressures. I think he might have led the league in pressures in week 1. But can he, get home and disrupt Burrow more? Can we get maybe a little push on the interior? That would be nice, since Bengals are a little weak up front as well. I mean, their offensive line isn't very good, so there should be some pressure. But I definitely see this as, I'm going to be holding my breath. I still don't trust our corners against those wide receivers. I don't think we're keeping them out of the end zone. Switching it over to the Bengals side, the Bengals offense with this Jags D, obviously that's their strength, but their strength is not on the inside. They're not a big running the ball football team. So that's kind of good for the Jags, since I don't think the Jags are really good at stopping the run. I think that's good for the Jags, but their strength is on the outside. Their strength is on the receivers. They're elite, and they're going to eat on our secondary. So as far as their defensive strengths, how they match up with the Jags against the run of the pass game, like I said, besides Hendrickson and a few secondary pieces, Jags should have no problem scoring in the 20s and 30s in this game. I very highly expect that to happen. And if it weren't for the Browns browning it up last game, then they would be 0-1 going at home against the Jags here. As far as my X factor for this game, I'm kind of going out of left field here. I'm going to go out on a limb. It's kind of a bold prediction, but I'm going to say Jags X factor this week is Parker Washington. He had no catches and fairly no impact on last week's game, which was a little surprising. But I think in this game, I'm going out of left field here, but I'm thinking that they're going to have a different plan for Travis Hunter this game. I think that you could see him more on defense this week. I could be totally wrong here, because they've shown that they want him on offense more. In my mind, if I was building the game plan, I would want Hunter more on defense this week. So if Hunter is more on defense, being a ball hawk, making plays, trying to make some splash plays for our offense to get a possession back, can Parker come in and fill in that slot role and be contributing well on offense and on special teams on punt returns and kick returns to kind of just keep the offense moving and keep us in good field position? I think if he can come in and be reliable on that end, I don't think the Bengals are very deep or very good at nickel or in safety. So if he's matched up one-on-one, he's great on those choice routes over the middle. He can do a lot of great things. I think that he could have a really big game and kind of be an X factor. He had 0 catches last week, but look to him to get more involved. And if he can kind of stay on the field, and it can be BTJ, De'Ami Brown, and Parker Washington on offense, kind of carrying that load, and then Hunter can kind of get more involved on defense, then I think that would be an amazing way to possibly win this game. Maybe Hunter gets his first pass breakup or big play, interception, something. As for the Bengals side, their biggest X factor, I'm going to go their tight ends, Noah Fant especially, and then probably Mike Gesicki as well. The Jags always fail to cover the tight ends, right? And just with so much attention on the wide receivers, on Higgins and Chase, and if Campanile's going to be blitzing, that's just going to make it so easy. I can see it in my head. I can see Noah Fant across the middle with no one even near him. I can see him out on the flat off a blitz, and then he just runs up the sideline for 20 yards. So I'm going to say if the Bengals get their tight ends involved, all that does is, okay, now we need to, focus more on the tight ends, and then, there goes Chase down the sideline, grittying into the end zone. That's my X factor there. All right, final score prediction. In my season preview, I had this as a loss, and though the Jaguars did come out and really impress me in week 1, and the Bengals didn't impress anyone in week 1, I still have the Bengals winning this game. The Jaguars 27, Bengals 35. The Jags did prove a lot last week, looked really good, but the Panthers are just a bad team. The Bengals didn't look good either. I just feel like all that will do is add motivation for them, and Joe Burrow's going to have that offense right, and I think they're going to look a lot better this week. I just still need to see some things from this defense. Okay, you shut out a bad offense. Okay, what happens if you go to an elite offense? Is that secondary going to be able to keep up? Is their interior D-line going to be able to stop the run and force the Bengals to be one-dimensional, which is still scary because of their weapons. So I'm just going to go with my gut. I hope they win. I hope I'm wrong and it's actually the opposite. The Jags score 35. But I just think it's a tough game on the road. It will be a fun game. I know I said the Jags score 27, but they could easily get to 31, 33 maybe. But I'll go with 35-27. Lots of scoring, but the Jaguars just fall short. All right, let's go around the league really quick. My week 1 picks, I actually went 11-5 straight up, but 6-10 against the spread. So that's why I don't bet with money on these games. Week 2 games, I'm just going to go through them really quick. I'm not going to go like in depth unless you guys want me to. Like I said, comment if you actually like watching me break down every game, but if not, I'm just going to go through really quick. All my picks are going to be on screen right here. I have Green Bay covering the spread against Washington, Dallas beating the ever-living daylights out of the New York Giants, Detroit gets the win over Chicago, LA gets the win over Tennessee, New England over Miami, San Francisco over New Orleans, Buffalo over New York, Pittsburgh beating Seattle, Baltimore beating Cleveland, Denver over Indianapolis, Arizona over Carolina, Philadelphia getting the win over Kansas City, Minnesota over Atlanta, and then I will go Tampa over Houston. That'll be kind of an upset of the week. Oh, and actually my real upset of the week is going to be the Raiders over the Chargers. I really liked how the Raiders looked. Smith he just keeps defying the odds every year. And the Chargers, though they looked really good as well, Monday night, in Vegas, I could see it being a really good game. And I'm going to say that the Raiders go over and win that game. But that's all for this week. I do have the Bengals beating the Jags this week, 35-27. But I hope I'm wrong. Obviously, in the comments, mention who do you think is going to win? Who's your surprise pick this week? How do you think the Jags do? And, what are we going to be talking about after Sunday? Are we going to be talking about a huge upset win? The Jags starting off 2-0 with Texans coming into town? That would be an amazing feeling, right? Or are we going to be kind of coming back down to earth after, last week's high and being like, okay, all right, we're kind of where we expected. Let's see if we can, pull out an upset at home against our division rivals. So that's all I got for today. As always, thanks for watching. Thanks for the huge support this week. Again, got a lot more views, a lot of subscribers than I usually get. I think that's really cool. Appreciate you guys watching and checking it out. Always stay tuned for more Jags Japan content. Obviously, I come out with weekly main videos. I do this preview show and I do a post-game show right after the game today, Wednesday, and then on Sunday night, I'll do the post-game show as well. And then I also do a Japanese language podcast every Friday night for those interested, if you happen to be studying Japanese like me. But yeah, that's all for today. Go Jags. Let's get 2-0. That'd be a good feeling, but I'll believe it when I see it. All right, guys. See you later.